September 17, 1862, Shopsburg, Maryland. The sun rose over a 24-acre cornfield that would soon become the deadliest piece of ground in American history. In just 4 hours, this single field would claim more American lives than the beaches of Normandy on D-Day, and most people have never even heard of it. Private Thomas Galway of the 8th Ohio Infantry woke before dawn, his hands trembling as he loaded his Springfield rifle. He was 16 years old. Around him, 12,000 Union soldiers prepared for what their commanders promised would be a simple assault on Confederate positions. What they didn't know was that 7,700 Confederate soldiers were waiting in that cornfield, hidden among the tall stalks, their rifles already aimed. The cornfield belonged to a farmer named David Miller. 2 days earlier, it had been a peaceful place where corn grew 8 feet tall, ready for harvest. By sunset today, it would be so soaked with blood that no one would farm it for years. But this story isn't just about one battle. It's about the single bloodiest day in American history, when 22,717 soldiers were killed, wounded, or went missing in just 12 hours of fighting. To put that in perspective, that's more American casualties than D-Day, 9/11s, and Pearl Harbor combined in one day. But here's what they don't teach you in school, and this changes everything about how we understand the Civil War. General Robert E. Lee had invaded the North. This wasn't supposed to happen. For over a year, the Confederacy had been fighting defensively, protecting Southern territory. But Lee had a bold plan: invade Maryland, win a major victory on Northern soil, and force Abraham Lincoln to negotiate peace, which would mean the Confederate States of America would become a permanent, independent nation built on slavery. Lee's Army of Northern Virginia, about 40,000 men, had crossed the Potomac River into Union territory. If he succeeded, European powers like Britain and France were ready to recognize the Confederacy as a legitimate nation and provide military support. The entire war hung in the balance. On the Union side, General George McClellan commanded the Army of the Potomac, 87,000 soldiers. McClellan had something Lee didn't know about: a copy of Lee's entire battle plan, found wrapped around 3 cigars by a Union soldier in an abandoned Confederate camp. It was the intelligence coup of the century. But McClellan, despite having twice as many men and knowing Lee's exact positions, moved slowly, too slowly. His caution would cost thousands of lives. If you're shocked by these facts, smash that like button. Comment below. Did you know Antietam was the bloodiest single day in American history? At 5:30 a.m., the assault began. Union General Joseph Hooker's corps, 1,600 men, advanced toward Miller's cornfield. Confederate General Stonewall Jackson's men waited, completely concealed among the cornstalks. The first Union soldiers entered the field, laughing nervously, rifles at the ready. Then the world exploded. Confederate rifles erupted from every direction. Men fell in rows, cut down like the corn around them. One Union officer later wrote, "Every stalk of corn in the northern and greater part of the field was cut as closely as could have been done with a knife, and the slain lay in rows precisely as they had stood in their ranks a few moments before." Private Galway, the 16-year-old from Ohio, saw the man next to him take a bullet through the throat. Then another fell, then another. Bodies piled so thick that soldiers had to climb over their dead friends to advance. For 3 hours, the cornfield changed hands 15 times. Union forces would push through, clearing out the Confederates. Then Confederate reinforcements would counterattack, driving the Union soldiers back. Then Union reinforcements would charge again. Back and forth, bodies stacking higher with each assault. A Confederate soldier named John Dooley wrote, "The ground was covered with the dead and dying. I was walking over them. I tried to guide my steps so as not to step on them, but it was useless to try. The noise was indescribable. Thousands of rifles firing simultaneously created a continuous roar that soldiers said sounded like tearing cloth, except magnified 1,000 times. Men shouted orders that couldn't be heard. Wounded soldiers screamed for help that wouldn't come. Artillery shells shrieked overhead and exploded in geysers of dirt and body parts. By 9 a.m., the cornfield fighting had reached a stalemate. Over 8,000 men lay dead or wounded in that single 24-acre field. The corn had been completely destroyed, torn apart by bullets and artillery. The ground was slippery with blood, but the battle was just beginning. What happened next at a sunken road nearby would earn it a new name: Bloody Lane. and the horror that unfolded there would shock even the hardened veterans of the cornfield. Don't miss Part 2. While the cornfield still smoldered with the dead and dying, the battle shifted half a mile south to an old country road that farmers had used for decades. Wagon wheels had worn it down so that it sat below ground level, a natural trench. Confederate General D.H. Hill had positioned 2,500 soldiers there, and they had a perfect defensive position. The sunken road was about to become hell on earth. At 9:30 a.m., Union General William French's division 5,500 men advanced toward the road. They couldn't see the Confederates until they were just 100 yards away. Hill waited until the Union soldiers were so close he could see their faces, then gave the order to fire. The first Union line simply disappeared in a cloud of smoke and led. Entire companies were cut down in seconds. But more kept coming. Wave after wave of Union soldiers charged the sunken road, and wave after wave was slaughtered. But here's what changed the entire battle, and most history books skip right over this crucial moment. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We're revealing the real stories of American history. For nearly 3 hours, Confederate soldiers in Bloody Lane held their position. Bodies of Union soldiers stacked so high in front of the sunken road that they created a wall of corpses 4 feet tall. Some Confederate soldiers later said they did not even have to aim, they just pointed their rifles at the mass of blue uniforms and fired. But then a catastrophic mistake occurred. A Confederate officer, trying to reposition his men during the chaos, gave an unclear order. Part of the line thought he said to retreat. They began pulling back, creating a gap in the defense. Union soldiers spotted the opening and poured through. Within minutes, the impregnable sunken road became a death trap for the Confederates. Union soldiers positioned themselves on both sides of the road and fired down into it. Confederate soldiers who moments before had been protected were now trapped in a trench with no escape. Bodies piled 3 and 4 deep. The road filled with blood until it literally flowed like a stream. One Union soldier, looking into the sunken road after the fighting, said, "They laid 3 deep in some places. I could have walked on their bodies from one end to the other without stepping on the ground." The road would forever after be called Bloody Lane. In 3 hours of fighting there, approximately 5,600 men were killed or wounded. By 1 p.m., Lee's army was on the verge of collapse. His defensive line had been shattered. He had no reserves left. McClellan had 20,000 fresh troops that had seen combat, yet more than enough to destroy Lee's army completely and potentially end the Civil War right there. But McClellan didn't attack. Historians still debate why. Some say he overestimated Confederate strength. Others say he lacked the courage to risk everything on one final assault. Whatever the reason, McClellan held back his reserves, and Lee's army survived. As the sun set on September 17, 1862, the battlefield fell silent except for the moans of the wounded. The death toll was staggering. 2,108 Union soldiers dead, 9,540 wounded, 753 missing. On the Confederate side, 1,546 dead, 7,752 wounded, 1,018 missing. A total of 22,717 casualties in 12 hours. To understand that number, if casualties occurred at a constant rate, a soldier was killed or wounded every 2 seconds for 12 straight hours. But the Battle of Antietam accomplished something that would change world history. While it was technically a tactical draw on either side, one decisively Lee was forced to retreat back to Virginia. The Confederate invasion of the North had failed. 5 days later, on September 22nd, President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation. He had been waiting for a Union victory to announce it, knowing that if he declared it during a losing streak, it would look like desperation. Antietam gave him that victory. The Emancipation Proclamation declared that all slaves in Confederate-held territory were free. It transformed the Civil War from a conflict about preserving the Union into a war about ending slavery. Britain and France, who had been considering supporting the Confederacy, couldn't now support a nation fighting to preserve slavery not after both countries had abolished it decades earlier. The war would continue for 3 more years and claim 620,000 more lives, but Antietam was the turning point. The cornfield and bloody lanes soaked with the blood of Americans killing Americans had determined the future of the nation. Today, you can visit Antietam National Battlefield. The cornfield has been replanted and the crops grow tall again. Bloody Lane is still there, a quiet sunken road that looks peaceful. But if you stand there at dawn when the mist rolls in and the morning sun hits the field just right, you can almost see them. Thousands of young men, blue and gray, fighting and dying for what they believed in. The bloodiest day in American history. A day that decided whether America would be one nation or two. Whether slavery would expand or end. Whether democracy would survive or fail. What do you think? Should Antietam be as famous as Gettysburg? Smash that like button, subscribe for more untold American history, and comment below with your thoughts. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our next story. Thanks for watching The Other Side of American History.